The cake still smelled like warm vanilla when he opened the box. We were in the dining room. My aunt was refilling glasses. My cousin was recording on her phone. The yellow light above the table made everything look softer than it really was. He lifted the watch out of the tissue paper and turned it over once, then twice. His mouth tightened. "Is this the cheap junk you got me?" The room went quiet. Even the fork in my cousin's hand stopped halfway to her mouth. I felt the heat rise to my face before I understood what was happening. I had saved for 3 months, skipped lunches, walked to work instead of taking the bus. I thought it was simple, practical, something he'd wear every day. Instead, he dropped it back into the box like it had dirt on it. "Couldn't you do better?" A few people laughed, the polite kind. The kind people use when they don't want to get involved. He stood up so fast his chair scraped hard against the floor. The sound cut through me. His hand came down across my cheek, not hard enough to leave a mark, just enough to remind me of my place. No one moved, not my mother, not my aunt, not anyone. I stared at the tablecloth, white with small blue flowers. I remember that detail more clearly than his face. Have you ever noticed how humiliation has a smell? Like something metallic in the air. I picked up my bag quietly. No one stopped me. And that was the part that hurt the most. I stepped outside before the tears fell. The evening air felt cold against my skin, though it was still early summer. I didn't know that walking away from that table would change everything. Because that night, before I made it home, a car slowed beside me, and someone inside already knew my name. I walked fast, like speed could erase what just happened. The streetlights were already on, that soft orange glow that makes everything look calmer than it is. Cars passed with their windows up, music low, people going somewhere they belonged. I kept my head down and wiped my face with the back of my hand, angry at myself for crying at all. How many times had I told myself I wouldn't care anymore? By the time I reached my apartment, my cheek felt hot, but my skin looked normal. No bruise, no proof. It would be my word against a room full of silence, and I already knew how that story ended. Inside, the place smelled like detergent and old cooking oil from the neighbor's kitchen. I set my bag on the chair and stood there, still wearing my shoes, still holding my breath. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "You left without saying goodbye." That was it. No, "Are you okay?" No, "What did he do?" Just a reminder that I had embarrassed them by leaving. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Then I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. 34 years old, and I still looked like a child when I was trying not to cry. I pressed my fingers to my cheek. The sting wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the feeling underneath it, like something small and bright inside me had been slapped too, like my effort had been punished, not appreciated. My father had always been like that. Love, for him, wasn't a thing you gave. It was a thing you earned. And somehow, I was always behind. When I was 12, he'd told me I ate too loudly. When I was 16, he said my laugh made me sound common. When I got my first job, he asked how much I made, then nodded like it wasn't enough. He never screamed. He didn't have to. He had this calm way of cutting that made everyone else pretend it was normal. He'd say something sharp, then sip his tea, and the whole house would adjust itself around his mood. My mother used to call it keeping the peace. I used to believe her. Now I wondered if peace was just the word we used for surrender. I made myself a cup of instant noodles because I hadn't eaten. The steam fogged the window above the sink. My hands shook as I poured the water, and I hated that too. I sat at the small table by the window and tried to slow my breathing. Have you ever felt your body keep reacting even after your mind has decided to move on? Outside, a dog barked. Somewhere in another apartment, a baby cried. Life kept going like nothing had happened. I checked my phone again. Another message. "Your father is disappointed. You should apologize tomorrow." Apologize? For what? For buying the best thing I could afford? For being humiliated without fighting back? For leaving before they could finish laughing? I didn't reply. Not because I was strong, because I was tired. I rinsed the bowl, turned off the kitchen light, and went to bed fully clothed. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, listening to it click softly as it turned. And that's when I heard it. Not inside the apartment. Outside. A car door closing. Then slow footsteps in the hallway. My stomach tightened and my body went still. At first I told myself it was a neighbor, but then something slid under my door. A folded piece of paper. No name, no envelope. Just one sentence written in neat, careful handwriting. Stop pretending he's your father. I didn't move for a long time. The paper stayed there, half under the door, like it belonged to the hallway and not to me. The ceiling fan kept clicking above my head. Slow, steady, almost calm. My heart wasn't. Who would write something like that? I finally got up and walked toward the door, each step careful, like the floor might shift. I crouched down and picked up the paper. It felt ordinary, thin, torn from a notebook. Stop pretending he's your father. The handwriting was neat, patient, not rushed. Whoever wrote it had taken their time. I opened the door quickly. The hallway was empty. The fluorescent light flickered near the stairwell. The air smelled faintly of bleach and old carpet. No footsteps, no shadows moving, just silence. I locked the door again and leaned against it. For a moment, I almost laughed. It felt dramatic, unreal, like something from a late-night show. But the laughter didn't come. Because deep down, the sentence didn't feel impossible. It felt dangerous. I sat at the table again and stared at the paper. Stop pretending. Pretending what? That I didn't notice how different I looked from him? That my skin tone was warmer than his? That my eyes weren't the same gray as his side of the family? People used to joke about it when I was younger. She must take after some distant relative. He would always go quiet when they said that. I told myself families come in all shades. That resemblance isn't everything. That blood doesn't always show on the surface. But there had been other things. Like how he never talked about the day I was born. He'd tell stories about my older brother's first steps, my sister's first word. When it came to me, he'd just say, "You were loud," and change the subject. I folded the paper slowly. Was I overthinking this? Letting one cruel birthday ruin my logic? My phone buzzed again. A number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. It stopped, then buzzed again. This time I answered. Hello? There was breathing on the other end. Slow, controlled. Then a man's voice. Calm. Older. I'm glad you picked up. My throat tightened. Who is this? A small pause. Someone who's been waiting a long time. I almost hung up. My hand even shifted slightly, but something held me there. You shouldn't have had to find out like this, he said softly. Find out what? I know tonight was difficult, he continued, but sometimes the truth surfaces when it's ready. My skin went cold. What truth? I asked. Silence, just enough to stretch the space between us. Then he said it. He is not your biological father. The words didn't hit all at once. They arrived slowly, like a wave that starts at your feet before it pulls you under. That's not funny, I said, but my voice sounded smaller than I wanted. I'm not joking. How would you know? Another pause. Because I am. The room felt too small. I stood up without realizing it. The chair scraped behind me. You're lying. I can explain, he said, but not over the phone. Every warning I'd ever been given flickered in my head. Don't trust strangers. Don't meet unknown men. Don't open doors. Yet hadn't I just spent my life trusting the wrong person? Tomorrow, he continued gently. There's a cafe on Maple Street, 10 in the morning. Come if you want answers. And if I don't, I whispered, then you'll keep pretending. The line went dead. I stared at my reflection in the dark window. The city lights outside blurred behind my face. Have you ever felt your entire history tilt slightly, but not enough to fall? I didn't sleep that night. At 9:58 the next morning, I was already standing outside the cafe, and a black sedan was parked across the street. The cafe windows were fogged from the inside. I could see shapes moving, cups lifting, people leaning forward in conversation, normal morning things. Across the street, the black sedan stayed still. Its engine was off, the windows slightly tinted, but not dark enough to hide everything, just enough to blur. I told myself I could still walk away. If I crossed back over the street, went home, blocked the number, none of this would be real. My father would still be my father. Last night would still just be another cruel moment I'd swallow and survive. But wasn't I tired of surviving? At exactly 10, the driver's door opened. A man stepped out slowly. He looked to be in his early 60s, gray at the temples, clean coat, calm posture, not rushed, not dramatic. He locked the car and crossed the street like someone who had done it 100 times. He stopped a few feet from me. Up close, I noticed his eyes first. Brown, the same shade as mine. "Thank you for coming," he said gently. I searched his face for something familiar. A nose shape, a jawline. Anything that felt like proof. My pulse thudded in my ears. "You said you could explain," I said. "I can." We went inside. The cafe smelled like roasted beans and warm bread. He ordered tea. I ordered nothing. My hands were too unsteady to hold a cup. He didn't waste time. "Your mother and I knew each other before she married him," he said. "We were young. It wasn't complicated, but when she told me she was pregnant, her family intervened." My chest tightened. "They wanted stability, a respectable match. I wasn't established yet, your current father was." The word current made something twist in me. "So she just switched?" I asked quietly. "It wasn't that simple." "It never is," I thought. "He agreed to raise you as his own," the man continued, "on one condition." My throat felt dry. "That I would never be part of your life." The air between us felt heavy. "And you just accepted that?" His eyes softened. "I didn't have much choice. I was told it was best for you." Best for me. That phrase again. I thought about every birthday where my father stood slightly apart from me in photos. Every time he'd introduce my siblings with pride and then pause before saying my name. Was that distance always there? "Why now?" I asked. "Because you're old enough to choose for yourself. And you decided last night was the perfect moment?" My voice cracked slightly. "I've been watching from a distance for years," he admitted quietly. "I promised I wouldn't interfere. But when I saw what happened yesterday, my stomach dropped." "You were there?" He nodded once. I saw him raise his hand. The memory flashed again. The scrape of the chair, the sting on my cheek, the silence. "And you did nothing." The words slipped out before I could stop them. His jaw tightened, not in anger, in regret. "You're right," he said. "I didn't." Silence sat between us. Have you ever realized the truth doesn't come with relief? Only more questions? He reached into his coat slowly and placed a small envelope on the table. "I had a DNA test done years ago," he said. "I never forced it into your life. But I kept it." I stared at the envelope. Proof. Or another wound. My reflection faintly stared back at me in the cafe window. Brown eyes, warm skin, a face that suddenly felt less certain. "If this is true," I whispered, "then what was I to him?" The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he said something softer. "You were a responsibility he agreed to, not a choice he made." The words landed quietly. And that's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. The black sedan across the street hadn't moved, and someone was now sitting in the passenger seat. Watching us, I didn't look back at the car again, not because I wasn't afraid, because I didn't want whoever was inside to see that I had noticed. "Do you see someone you recognize?" the man across from me asked quietly. I shook my head, but my fingers tightened around the edge of the table. The cafe felt smaller now, the hum of the espresso machine louder. A spoon clinked against porcelain somewhere behind me. Life continued in gentle rhythms while mine shifted under my feet. "Has he always known?" I asked. "Yes." The word was steady, certain. And my mother? Yes. A strange calm moved through me. It wasn't shock anymore. It wasn't even anger. It was distance. I thought about the times my father corrected the way I spoke, the way he'd compare my grades to my siblings, the way he'd say, "You're not like the others," and I'd spend weeks trying to figure out what that meant. What if he never meant it as criticism? What if it was simply truth? I reached for the envelope, but didn't open it. Not yet. "Why didn't you try harder?" I asked softly. The man looked at his tea. The steam had faded. "I wrote letters," he said. "They were returned. I asked to meet you once when you were 10. I was told you didn't want to see me." My chest tightened. I had never been asked. "After that," he continued, "I built my life. I respected the agreement, but I never stopped keeping track of you." Keeping track how? School achievements. Public records. Nothing intrusive. The word intrusive lingered in my mind. Is watching someone from a distance care or control? He slid a small photograph across the table. It was me at 16, standing outside my high school with a certificate in my hand. I remembered that day. I had searched the crowd for my parents. My mother had been late. My father hadn't come. But someone had taken this photo. Someone had been there. "You were proud of me," I said before I could stop myself. He didn't answer directly. I was there. The simplicity of that sentence hit harder than anything else. For years, I thought no one had shown up. Outside, a car door shut. My heart jumped. I glanced toward the window without turning my head fully. The passenger door of the sedan had opened. A figure stepped out. Broad shoulders. Familiar posture. I didn't need to see his face. My father. He stood on the sidewalk across the street, staring straight at the cafe. How long had he been there? Had he followed me? Or had someone told him? The man across from me noticed my silence. "He wasn't supposed to know," he murmured. "Supposed to?" "He's always been careful about appearances." That sounded right. Careful about reputation, about how things looked, about what neighbors said, but never careful about how I felt. My phone buzzed on the table. Dad calling. The name looked different now. I let it ring. It stopped. Then a message appeared. "Come outside. Now." No please, no explanation, just command. I felt something inside me shift again. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to rush toward his approval. Have you ever noticed the moment you stop chasing someone's validation, and they suddenly start chasing you? "I don't want a scene," I said quietly. "There doesn't have to be one," the older man replied. I looked down at the envelope again. Proof waiting to be opened. Truth waiting to be faced. And across the street, the man who raised me stood alone on the sidewalk, waiting. I stood up slowly. Not because I was afraid, because I didn't want to rush into his gravity again. "I'll be right back," I told the man across from me. He nodded, but his eyes followed me carefully. The bell above the cafe door chimed as I stepped outside. The air felt cooler than it had a few minutes ago. My father didn't cross the street. He waited where he was, with hands behind his back like he was inspecting something. Or someone. I walked toward him. Up close, he looked the same. Pressed shirt, sharp posture, controlled expression. Only his jaw was tighter than usual. "What are you doing here?" he asked. No greeting, no softness. "I could ask you the same," I replied. His eyes flicked toward the cafe window. He had seen who I was sitting with. "Don't embarrass this family further," he said quietly. "Whatever he told you, it's unnecessary." Unnecessary. Like my feelings, like my bruised cheek, like my existence when it didn't fit his image. "Is it true?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he sighed. The kind of sigh meant to signal patience. "You've always been too emotional," he said. "This is adult business." Adult business. As if my own identity were paperwork. "Am I his daughter?" I asked again. His silence stretched long enough to become an answer. People passed us on the sidewalk. No one stopped. No one looked twice. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You are my responsibility," he said. "That's what matters. Not my choice, not my love, responsibility." And in that moment, something inside me stopped trying to translate his words into affection. Because there was none. I didn't argue. For once, I didn't defend myself, didn't search his face for a crack in the armor, didn't wait for a softer version of him to appear. I just nodded. "Okay," I said quietly. The word confused him. I could see it. He was used to resistance, to tears, to explanations, to me asking what I could do better. But I had nothing left to improve for him. He straightened slightly. "You're coming home," he said. Home. The word felt distant now. "I'm not," I replied, calm. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. "Don't be dramatic. Dramatic, emotional, difficult. How many labels had I worn just to survive his version of love?" "I won't discuss this here," he continued. "People are watching." I glanced around. No one was watching, and that was the quiet truth of it. The world had never been as invested in our story as he believed. "I have to go," I said. "To him." His voice tightened. "To myself." The words surprised even me. For a moment he looked older, not weaker, just smaller. "You'll regret this," he said softly. Maybe, but I had spent my whole life regretting staying silent. I turned away before he could say anything else. Each step back toward the cafe felt steady, not rushed, not rebellious, just chosen. Inside, the older man stood when he saw me return. His eyes searched mine for damage. "There won't be a scene," I told him, because the real separation had already happened. I didn't open the envelope in the cafe. I carried it home in my bag like something fragile, not because I was afraid of the result, but because I needed the silence first. That evening, my phone stayed quiet. No messages from my mother, no missed calls, no instructions. For years, my worth had been measured by how quickly I responded, how easily I adjusted. That night, I let the quiet sit. I made tea, sat at the small table by the window, the same place I had cried 24 hours earlier. Life can change that fast. I opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a lab report. Dates, numbers, clinical language. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. There it was. No drama, no music swelling in the background, just ink on paper. I stared at it for a long time. Did I feel different? A little. But not in the way I expected. The man who raised me had chosen responsibility over love. The man who watched from a distance had chosen patience over interference. Both flawed, both human. But for the first time, I realized something steady. I was not a mistake to be managed. I was not a burden agreed upon. I was a person who deserved to be chosen. The next morning, my father showed up at my apartment. Not angry, not loud, just controlled. "People are asking questions," he said. "Let's handle this privately." There it was again, appearance over honesty. "I'm not hiding anymore," I replied calmly. He studied my face like he was seeing it for the first time. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but this one was mine." "I'm grateful you raised me," I said, and I meant it. "But I won't keep shrinking to make you comfortable." He didn't argue. For once, he had no script, and that was how he exposed himself. Not with rage, not with denial, with silence. After he left, I blocked his number. Not out of revenge, out of peace. Weeks later, I met the other man again. Slowly, carefully, no promises, just conversations. I didn't rush into calling him Dad. That word means something. Have you ever rebuilt your identity piece by piece? It takes time, but it's possible. If this resonates, like the video and share your story below. Sometimes the quietest truths shape us the most. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my quiet strength. What would you do? Comment below,